Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Drivin with Mr. Met. Today is Tuesday, December the 11th, December the 10th, my bad. And I'm here to talk about the winter meetings, day one, on which not a whole lot happened, and yet Mets Twitter reacted appropriately, clinging to every word, overanalyzing every word, and tearing apart anything that came out of the mouth of General Manager Brodie Van Wagenen. And I want to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday, and I want to touch on something that I forgot to mention when I had some time yesterday morning on the show. I'm going to do those things today. If it were easy to do, I would actually download the clip and play it here, but I'm sure there are probably like MLB rights issues that would prevent me from doing that. But yesterday at the winter meetings, Brodie Van Wagenen had a few opportunities to speak to the press, as he does every day, and he said a couple of things that raised the eyebrows of many on Mets Twitter. And let me first preface it by saying I get it. I do. I understand that when he says certain things, you hear the words and your reactions are immediate and angry. And this is, of course, in reference to the comment that we identified holes last year and plugged them. He didn't say that explicitly, but I think that's what everybody heard, or that's what many people heard. You know, they heard that we don't have any holes to fill right now, and I don't think that's what Brodie was trying to say. I think the reality of the situation is that, look, they were a much better team in the second half in 2019, and hopefully that can continue in 2020, but it's not going to continue without improving the bullpen at the very least. And I think that's the what everyone would really like to hear Brodie say. You know, what I forgot to mention yesterday was that over the weekend the Mets re-signed Brad Brach on a very team-friendly one-year contract with a second-year option for Brach, but it's for less than $1 million. It's $835,000 for a one-year deal. That's a steal for a guy who just a few short years ago was an all-star, and who, despite struggling early last season while he was a member of the Cubs, came to the Mets and pitched okay to pretty well. The numbers for Brach are pretty straightforward. He does not pitch well against lefties, and so it'll be incumbent on Carlos Beltran to recognize that and not use Brad Brach against left-handed batters. Now, that'll be a little bit more of a challenge going forward because of the newly implemented, or the soon-to-be newly implemented, relievers must face 3 batters minimum rule that's coming into play this season. So that'll be interesting. But the point that I'm making here, and by the way, I like the deal to bring Brach back, bring Brach back, right? I like the deal. I think it was a good smart play, and very inexpensive. And as I talked about yesterday, you know, it'll be nice to stop talking about shopping in the dumpster bin or the clearance rack. But the reality is right now that's still where the Mets need to shop. So they went out and they got someone inexpensive who proved that they could pitch pretty well here last season. But back to the whole, and circling back to the whole Brodie thing, the comments that he made about filling holes last season, I get how people can be upset about that, considering that the only things that have happened this offseason thus far are the acquisitions of Brad Brach and a couple of minor league invites and a trade for Steven Gonzalez and the big blockbuster trade with the Astros to bring in Jake Marisnick. I get the ire. But the reality, the question that I really kind of turn around and ask is, well, what do you want him to say? You know, do you want him to say, oh man, we are so screwed. There are so many holes that we have to fill. We don't know how we're going to fill them. What do you want? We have to prioritize like this, and this, and we only have $18 million to spend, and there's no way we're going to be able to compete with the Braves or the Nationals, and now even probably the Phillies. It's looking like fourth place, guys, so don't get your hopes up. That's not Brodie Van Wagenen's job. Is that a more accurate assessment? Perhaps. It might be a more accurate assessment of what's going on with the Mets in 2020 coming up. But that's not what the general manager can do. The general manager can't and shouldn't tip his hand, shouldn't let other people know what's going on too far into. And as I said before, he's cut back on the leaks, and I think he's at the forefront of that. He doesn't say more than he absolutely needs to say. He toes a pretty close script that he will deviate from, but stick to the core or outline of when it comes to giving interviews. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, whatever comes out of his mouth, whether we like it or we don't like it, what really matters and what ultimately matters is what happens on the field. And whether Brodie talks a good game or not, whether he lies or not, whether he butters everybody up with talk like he did in this interview yesterday or not, the only thing that matters is how the team plays. And I have said this multiple times over the last few weeks. I feel very strongly about keeping this core group together because of the chemistry that exists in this locker room. This Mets team went on a really significant run last year. And I get the ire. I get the everyone thinking, well, you can't just bring the same guys back. You kind of can, and that seems to be what the Mets are going to do. And look, the numbers don't lie. If the Mets had a decent bullpen, they're in the playoffs. And who the hell knows what happens then? I mean, look what happened with the Nationals, right? A team who, by the way, the Mets played pretty damn well against last year. So to say that the Mets are that far off in fourth place isn't completely fair, and I don't like to get on Brodie for basically doing his job. The other comment that I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong way was how he described in short form the decision-making process surrounding Zach Wheeler and whether to or not to bring him back. And in short form, he sort of said, I shouldn't say that. In short form, what people heard was, we didn't think Zach Wheeler was worth the kind of money he signed for. And that's not what he said. What he sort of said, what he was trying to say, or what he said was, we identified how much money we wanted to spend on him, and we knew pretty early on that we could not and were not going to match the offers that he was going to get on the open market. Obviously, showing what happened yesterday, over last week, where he got the money that he did. That there's nothing wrong with that statement. He's not begrudging Zach Wheeler. He's not saying Zach Wheeler doesn't deserve this money. Zach Wheeler absolutely does deserve this money. He's earned it. Good for him. No one is saying that Wheeler's not good, etc. But the Mets are operating within a budget. They know how much they have to spend. They couldn't do it. So that's that. I don't know what else to say about that. And again, he's being honest. He was being honest. And you kind of have to toe the lines here and figure out what it is you want, because you can't have it both ways. You can't get mad at him for sugarcoating something like the way he did with we don't have that many holes to fill sort of thing. But then also get mad when he's straightforward and honest about the fact that they didn't bring Wheeler back because they couldn't afford him. And they wanted to spend a certain amount, and they knew he was going to get more. It is what it is. And, baseball's crazy right now. The Steven Strasburg contract yesterday, blows my mind that this guy got that much money. Bottom line, Strasburg, really good pitcher. Not taking anything away from him. Not even mad that he's getting the money. Good for him, man. That's awesome. Anybody that can get paid, go for it. Dude, he's earned it. He's earned the paycheck. That being said, teams are out of their minds for paying the amount of money they're paying to these guys. Strasburg is the number 2 for the Nationals. He has been the number 2 for years because he's behind Max Scherzer, who would likely be the number one in pretty much every rotation with the Scherzer would be the number one in just about every rotation in baseball. It'd be a really close competition depending on who was on the staff with him. But my point with Strasburg is that he's not the ace on this staff or of this staff. He never has been. He was a highly touted rookie who came up and took the world by storm, but has never been an ace. And there are a ton of other teams that and I got sort of chastised about this on Twitter last night. There are other teams upon which he would not be the ace either. So I'm just saying Strasburg's getting the money that people were saying Cole was going to get. People were saying Cole might get. Strasburg is now getting that money. So what does that mean for Garrett Cole? And what does it mean for baseball in general as a whole? It's just crazy, mind-blowing stuff. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but I do know that none of these guys are going to be worth the money that they sign. It's not possible to be worth the money that you're signing for. You are just paying, teams are paying too much per win. And it's not going to change unless, of course, they know something we don't, meaning that the strike is coming. And maybe those contracts will get voided. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to watch, that's for sure. But I'm looking to see what kind of record Garrett Cole sets when he finally signs his deal with the Yankees in the next week or so. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. That kind of went on longer than I thought it should, but I kind of blabbered and rambled a bit in the middle. I don't know whether you agree or disagree with how I feel about Brodie. I don't really care. Honestly, I try to keep it even keel. So, if you're mad at Brodie, you're probably mad at me for not being mad at Brodie, and that's cool. You're entitled to your opinion. Everyone is. And keep it. I don't want to change your mind. If you think that Brodie's an idiot and you think he's a snake oil salesman, more power to you, dude. You're up to you. But don't get mad at me for not being mad about it. Don't get mad at other people who don't share the same opinion. Just like I'm not getting mad at you for having the opinion that you have. Everyone can have an opinion. Everyone's entitled. Go for it. Some are more correct than others. That's neither here nor there. That's a debate for another day and another time. Until then, whenever that day comes, that'll be it for today. So follow me on Twitter if you're not already doing so at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.